Okay, so here's the Grateful Dead light up Deadhead sign I made out of epoxy MDF, and it's filled with LED lights. I'm going to show the computer work and everything else I have. If you don't want to see the computer work, skip forward to 1425. Um, but here's how I made it. Enjoy. Alright, so computer files for the Deadhead epoxy sign thing. I made the vectors by bringing in a bitmap or a picture of the logo and tracing it with the tools here in Aspire, not the bitmap trace, but I use circles and draw line features, so I didn't get as much node. It is more tedious, but it ends up with a way better um, product in the end. The toolpaths, we start off with the white toolpath, which covers all the entirety of every where the epoxy will be, and we do that with a deep pour epoxy. Okay, don't need that. And go down a ½ inch deep, and I use a surfacing end mill, 1 3/8 inch surfacing end mill, and I set the depth on that to 0.07. I find that's what my machine handles the best, so that's what I did, and it works better than using a 1/4 inch for the surface area that we're doing, because this is about going to be a 24-inch round sign in the end. And I clean it up with a 1/8 inch down cut end mill. Ramp the plunge move, uh, ramp plunge moves, double the diameter of the bit, and then we go ahead and carve that out, and we'll paint it and epoxy it. And once the epoxy cures, we'll go on to the next, which I believe we did blue second, which is right here. Now we do offset the color lines to go into the black, so that way it leaves a nice clean black on color line, and you don't have, there's no chance of white getting and sneaking in there anywhere in your lines. I just found it's easier with my machine to do it that way. So as you'll see, all the colors are offset. The actual line that I want in the end will be right here, which is will be part of the black curve that we do at the end. We do the colors at 0.2 depth. I used a 1/4 inch end mill with a 1/16 inch bit to clean it up. That way I had nice crisp lines, and it really got in there as best as possible. And yeah, ramp our plunge moves. And once we do that, we'll fill that in with blue. And once that cures, we'll bring it back onto the table and do our red carve. Now, the red carve is done the same way as the blue carve. 0.2 depth, we offset the color into the black lines, um, and then we carve it out with a 1/4 inch bit, 1/16 inch uh, bit to clean it up with, and then we move on to our black carve. Our black carve, we select all the vectors except for those offset vectors, and then we end up doing that one 0.2 depth, and we end up using an 1/8 inch bit followed up with the 1/16 inch end mill. I find the 1/8 inch just cuts better, and there wasn't a lot of for the 1/4 inch to do on its own, with the lines being so thin and everything everywhere. This was just easier than doing 3 different bits, I found, or putting a lot of stress on the 1/16 inch bit to carve out the 1/8 inch. sections essentially. And I did want to end up with a 16th inch bit to get all the fine details. So this is the route we went there. Uh, we will go ahead and calculate that guy for you. And then, so like I said, the first one's white. That's why we left the material white. So we'll preview this one. This is going to be the red and the blue. And then the black. All right, so after all those colors and epoxies, uh, then we'll bring it back up, and I use the G-Sender program to flatten it slowly to bring it down to surface. I usually flatten it to 0.01 depth. That way, uh, end up getting a nice, clean, flat surface everywhere to work with. And then you'll see I have these little holes right here. And these are 0.35 inch round, and they fit the round Home Depot pencils, which I cut up those to use for my pegs. And I end up doing four on these because I have four. I ended up programming it so where I use the same XY0, and I can end up using the same four peg holes on my surface board for multiple different epoxy projects. And that way I'm not drilling a whole bunch of different holes. So I just use those same four for the profiles on my boards that I'm using right now. And of course, you copy those to the other side. This is a two-sided project. And then on the other side, you know, before we get there, how I got to my numbers is I took my epoxy profile, and I wanted at least a inch right here for my backer to set half-inch on, and for me to have a half-inch of material between the backer and the outside of the rim. That way I have plenty of room to screw my backer on, and I have plenty of room to screw a hanger on, or something of that nature. So I offsetted my epoxy line an inch and a half. That way I left plenty of room between the epoxy and the rim of the inside, and for the lights to show through, and it wouldn't cover it all up. This is just what I ended up doing. So I offset my epoxy line, my deep pour epoxy, by an inch and a half. And then I take that line and I copy it to the other side. And then I take that line and I inset it, or offset it inwards by 1 inch. That leaves me a half-inch there clearance between that and there. And then I copy those two lines to a second sheet. And on this sheet, I make my riser. Now, once I have these two lines copied in there, I take one of them and I offset it, either the inside one outwards by a half-inch or the outside one inwards by a half-inch. And that gives me the ledge that my backer will sit on. I also, down here, draw a square rectangle that is 0.35 wide by an inch long, and I will pocket that to the same depth as this inside pocket that would be right here between these two vectors. So that vector and this vector will essentially be pocketed to the same depth, which I was doing at 0.15. I think in future ones I'll do at 0.2. I found that the backer sets up a little proud from the material, and I wanted to set flush or a little low, but I'm still working that one out. The material is 0.15. So, but for this purpose, I did do 0.15 for the depth on these. Now, and then the, so that's the two pockets that you have right here. If I go into it, now this pocket is for here. And you see I have it at 0.15 depth, two flute uh, up cut 1/4 inch, but you would think you'd want down cut so you have clean edges and stuff. But with the MDF material, I find that cut bit works better because it's much better. It's easier to clean those edges than it is to clean the cut material itself. So I use a two flute upcut um, for this process for the whole razor, and then we'll cut that pocket out. We'll cut this pocket out, and then we do two profile cuts, one for the outside and one for the inside, and those are going all the way through 0.75 through. We're going to put some tabs on them. I put 4 tabs on my materials on the outside ones, that way it would all end up being one piece at the end. And on the inside one, I think, yeah, I just did 2. I just didn't want that breaking loose. I would calculate that, and we'll just do the whole merge toolpath. Then we merged all those pockets and all those together. I like to put my pockets in front of my profile cuts. That way I feel it's more rigid if you do your pockets before you cut out anything. We'll preview that toolpath. And once this is done, it'll give you your riser. This middle piece will come out, these will come out, and you'll have your riser. And there's a slot for your cordage for your LED lights. Now, then we take this line right here, because it's the same size as your backer, and we copy that to a third sheet. And on this sheet, we bring the thickness down to whatever thickness your back material ends up being. Mine is 0.15. It's some like laminated backer material that I got at Home Depot. It's only like 15 to 20 bucks a 4x8 sheet, but it works really good. You don't have to stain it or paint it or anything like that. It looks really professional. Now on this cut, you go to depth of your backer. I used the 2 flute end mount 1/4 inch bit outside the line. Put your tabs on it, but the allowance offset is where my sweet number for my machine, it might be different for yours. I have the long mill MK2, is negative 0.08, and that gives me a perfect fit for my backer. If I go any smaller, if I go with no allowance offset, the backer is always too big. I've tried 0.05 and it just still is a little bit too big, but 0.08 is like a perfect fit for me. At least that's what I found for the epoxy projects that I have done. And we calculate that one, and there you go. Alright, so we're doing the 1/2 inch white pour, carve first, using the 1 3/8 inch bit first, followed with the 1/8 inch bit, and then we're going to take it off and use kills. I only use kills and MDF for various reasons. Just take my word for it. We're going to use caulking to caulk around the whole pocket. That way when we pour the epoxy, it won't overflow. And we're doing our deep pour epoxy. This is the 2-to-1 ratio. This will take up to 48 hours to cure. Well, it'll take 48 hours to harden. And we're going to use a torch to release the bubbles, and then we're going to spray it down with 91% alcohol. That also helps get the bubbles out. And after that hardens 2 days later, this is us carving out the blue with the 1/4 inch bit first, and we're going to follow it up with the 1/16 inch bit. That'll give us a nice clean crisp lines there. Once we pop that off, we do 50-50 epoxy. This will only take 24 hours to harden. And same method with the bubbles, torch and the 91% alcohol. Then we go on to the red carve. Same bits, the 1/4 inch followed with the 1/16 inch bit. And we're going to do the 50-50 epoxy again. Once we fill the epoxy in, of course, take the torch over it again, spray it again, and now we're doing the black. The black is going to be the 1/8 inch bit first, and we're going to end up following that up with the 1/16 inch bit. And this will really get in the detail, and the black is going to show all the lines, and it's really going to make everything pop. But once the black is done carving, we'll take it off the table and we'll do another 50-50 epoxy pour right there. And once we do that pour, we're going to do the torch and 91% alcohol as well. The only time we don't use the 91% alcohol is going to be when we do the clear coat. After we do the black and it hardens, we take it to the table again and we start flattening it using G-Cinder. End up flattening it to 0.01. Flatten the whole material so that way when we turn it over, it's all flat to the bed too. We're going to sand it up, and we're going to apply a clear tape. We usually use Oramask, but we didn't have it. This worked out well. And then I take a 1/16 inch bit and do the profile cut at 0 depth for the base. Now this is, then we do the peg holes and the surface board, and another thing, there's the pencils that we put in there, and we match those to the holes, and we screw it down, and we start doing our back. Our back, we're using the 1 3/8 inch bit again, followed by an 1/8 inch bit, and this we're going all the way down to 0.3, so we meet the white epoxy. Then we flip it back over, carve out a profile cut with a 1/4 inch bit, and this is a round over that we do with a round over bit. It gives you a nice rounded profile there. Now this is the riser. It's one cut path, tool path with 2 pockets and 2 profiles merged together. And then we cut out the backer. And this is going to be the last piece for the CNC that we have to cut out. Once we have that cut out, we'll glue together the main piece and the riser, marry them together, and we'll put as many clamps as you have available to you to clamp it all together. And then I take it to my router table with a flush trim bit, and I just flush trim it on both sides. I put some paper and tape on the good side, that way it would scratch up the tape that was already there and fuck up the painting process. Now I'm putting tape on the back side so we don't fuck up the back side when we paint it. And we're going to do kills again, prime it, with the kills. I don't sand it before I prime it. You trust me with the MDF, it's pointless to even try sanding it until you primed it first. With kills. You can use other stuff, but it just seems to soak it in. And once we prime it, take a 320 grit and we go over it and we sand it. I got lucky with this one. I didn't have to prime it again after I sanded it. Everything like seemed to turn out perfectly with this one. I sand in the back. I'm using a Rust-Oleum gloss black paint, and this is giving it a nice coat on the back, nice coat on the top, nice coat on the sides. I actually gave it 2 coats, and now we're going to do the clear coat. You pour 50-50 epoxy, rub it around with a glove in the hand, make sure everything's level. I like having it on the spinny chair thing. That way I could turn it every 15 to 30 minutes. And I really got a really nice look on this guy. And we take a torch, pop all the bubbles we can. Yeah, and it just looks, it makes everything pop. Look at how beautiful. Now I'm cutting the backer, a little slot for the LED lights, the cordage, and then we take aluminum tape and we apply that to the backer. Aluminum tape helps the light stick, and it's a great heat sink. Cut. I do a little mark around on the aluminum tapes to show where not to go with the lights. Here we are putting on the lights. I ended up using the on lights on this one, but in the future ones I'm going to be trying to figure out a different lighting system. To use 2 different sets of lights on this one because the first one messed up, and I think there might be something wrong with the second one after evaluating the next project that I did. But there's the LED lights, put as many on there as you can. At least that's my philosophy. Uh, whatever strip lights you got, I'm just using CA glue to just get that bottom piece to stick there good so it doesn't move around. And pop on the piece, and there you go. It lights up. Isn't that cool? Grateful Dead. Deadhead. And this thing turned out sick. The customer was really happy. It was my friend Chris's birthday. His wife Melissa bought it for him. And now the only thing left to do is turn it over, put the backer on, and drill some holes and put some screws on. And then we'll put a hanger on it, and get the hanger on it right there. And that's basically it. That's how we did it. The Grateful Dead Deadhead LED sign made out of epoxy. And subscribe for more, man. I got a lot more videos I'm editing and working on, and other projects as well. So, have a good one.